One of the strategies. Good morning, everyone. It is the rainy season. The month of October is a month that we get the most rain all year round. My understanding, we get 8 times more rain in October than we do March. And this leads to some issues because we have gotten consistent rain every day for the last week. A majority of that rain comes in the afternoon. Around 4 o'clock, the clouds roll in, dump rain on us. And we've been getting a lot of rain, enough rain that it interferes with our ability to work here. I'm going to show you a few things that will help manage rainfall like this. You want to be able to get and capture as much rain as possible, and you want that rain to be available, all that water to be available for your plants. Now, the best way to do that is to increase the life in the soil. We've been talking about the soil food web forever, and it's really important you understand how critical it is to growing your stuff. Anything you want to grow, you need a soil food web. It's that simple. This area right here is an area we haven't planted. We haven't mulched it. We haven't done anything with it yet. In fact, this is part of the roadway. There's 2 problems. One, this water isn't soaking into the ground. Now, a lot of that is because we're dealing with a hard pan clay. The clay that we're standing on is about 4 to 6 feet deep before we get to a sand layer. And this clay is compacted and it's hard, so what happens is the water just sits on the surface. The sun will burn it off and it'll evaporate out into the air and not be useful to our plants. That's not the good thing. It's not what we want to see. Now, you see how much water there is there in the area that hasn't been messed with. We haven't planted anything. We've got just the rock hard clay layer that's interfering with everything. Now we're going to come over here to this food forest section. Now, this food forest, we've mixed a lot of mulch. We did till it once. We'll never till it again. We only tilled it once to mix organic matter into the soil. That organic matter is going to be critical to holding moisture in the ground where we want it. Now, this area is about 50 feet from the other spot. Exact same soils. The difference is this, we mixed in a whole lot of compost. We tilled it in, and then we put a good layer of mulch over the top. And look at how great this soil is. All the life in the soil is absorbing that moisture. We're not in puddles. In fact, if the entire property looked like this, we'd be able to work here without any problems at all. This is our goal. We want to get the moisture to absorb into the ground where it's useful. All the rain we've gotten has soaked into the ground, and now it's there for these plants to use. It will be there for the plants to use in a month, in 2 months. Come January, when the rains have dried up and it's hot and dry, the soil will have this moisture in it for us to grow. We've got a semi-crumb structure. There's still some clay here, but it's only been a few months. But take a look. This is much more of a crumb structure. It's not a rock hard clay. We're going to plant some of these pineapple tops I've had at the house. We're going to put some compost around them. These pineapple tops, we've been growing them at the house. We brought them here to get them in the ground during the wet season. One of the strategies used when dealing with hard clay is to plant things like sweet potatoes. The tubers dig into this clay. Now, we don't necessarily harvest the sweet potatoes. After these die off, you want the tubers in the ground. As they break down, they compost into the soil, creating pathways for water and increasing the life, which will break up this clay, making it possible for us to grow more effectively. Next to the sweet potatoes, we've got this Pigeon Pea. The rest, everyone calls this a pigeon pea. In Jamaica, they call it a gunga pea. The gunga pea is a legume, and it will dig its roots into the soil and leave nitrogen. You plant these in the beginning of the year, late December, early January, and you grow them and harvest everything around Christmas time. They give you a really good root structure, and they give you a pea. These are a key step in rejuvenating this ground. This will be more than just a chop and drop. We will be chopping it, chipping it, and using it for mulch. The root systems will be in the ground decomposing, feeding nitrogen to the soil, but they also give us pigeon peas. And here they use these all the time. As you see, here's another one. We've got several of these. The more of these we can grow, the better. Look at the structure of this soil here. This is the exact same thing. We've used mulch and compost, and the structure of this soil is just beautiful. Nice crumb. Now, it's not perfect. It still needs work, but it's really nice. And this is the kind of thing we want to see everywhere. Just going to take time. But we took that heavy, hard clay, compacted, useless, hard clay, and turned it into this in 6 months. Imagine what it'll look like in 5 years. This right here is a grafted macadamia. Now, there's an advantage to using a grafted macadamia, twofold. First off, seeds, macadamias grown from seed will take up to 10 years to produce, and you don't want to wait 10 years. It's just the nature of the beast. The grafted macadamia will actually produce fruit, or nut actually, will produce nuts much faster. Macadamias have a bad habit of going through horrible transplant shock, so I'm real careful with the root ball on this one, hoping to get it in the ground. We've got some compost around it and give it a little water. Hopefully we'll get some rain. It's on the mound in this perfect soil. This is the best place for it to grow. We're gonna give it a little prayer. So far I've had real bad luck getting macadamias, but this one is the biggest one we've tried to plant, and it seems to be the best one. Yeah, the soil in here, it's not as good as the last one, but it's still better. And don't forget, we should be, everywhere else we'd be planting would be super heavy, soggy water, real bad soggy. And this, well draining, perfect, no problems. Now this jackfruit, jackfruits are just great things to grow. The goats hate them because they've got too much latex, so we don't have to worry about the goats eating them. Now this one, we are going to break up that root ball. Let's see the clump of root trying to grow in the center there. We want to make sure that doesn't start growing in a big circle. Now put some compost. Can't have too much compost. Just get it going, and it's going to seed all the life. What we want, the humic acid in this compost is going to spread out from this hole and break up the clay even more. Again, look at the difference in this soil. This is a crumbly soil. It's still heavy clay, but look at the crumb structure. This is the difference between water soaking in and being useful to the plants and what we see in the other section, which is just rock hard clay that the water sits on top of and doesn't penetrate down. Unfortunately, the entire property is that rock hard clay with no penetration. So we need to spend a great deal of time amending the soil to make it look like this. Once we actually have the house built and we've got some animals here, that'll help speed up the process. Until then, we've got to do it just like this, small sections at a time. Every little food forest section we plant, we're going to try and make it look like this. And the better it is, the more compost we add, the better this gets. It's the life in the soil that makes it look like this. Water is one of the most important resources you have, and if you have soil that won't absorb the water, or if you have soil that won't hold the water, you've got a problem. Now, we have soil that won't absorb the water. When it rains, most of the water sits on the surface and gets burnt off by evaporation in the sun. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot we can do here today, But over in this section of the food forest, we're able to get some of the trees we need planted. This is where we had a bunch of those trees die. So we're replacing those trees with something else, or we're just replanting this section. Unfortunately, I wanted to get into the other food forest. Can't do that until we clear a bunch of the grass. Got to get some of that grass cleared. So I'm hoping that tomorrow things dry up. If we don't get rain tonight, tomorrow we should be able to get in here and cut that stuff down. Then we'll start planting over there, replacing the dead things. Then we'll mulch all the stuff we just planted today. And we have the exact same problem with water over here in the timber section. Parts of this timber have got beautiful, almost untouched soil, and other parts of it are just puddling up messes. This is what killed our teak, the 2 teak that died. This is what killed them. But interestingly enough, the 2 that were damaged, the first flooding, are doing just fine now. So I think they got their root system deep enough to avoid the issue. They're also a little bit farther away. So as they got bigger and as they got their root system deeper, they were able to position themselves so they didn't get damaged the next time we had flooding. Here's what we're dealing with. This is all rainwater. And there's a lot of water right here. As we push back, there's less and less, and that's where the soil structure is actually better and better. The better the soil, the less water on the surface. So this is why we need to get the soil healthier. We're always doing what we can to get something to grow that's going to benefit the soil. We've been replacing these tall, nasty grasses with this lemongrass, which is a significantly more beneficial grass. And we've got sweet potatoes that we're going to start planting over here. If we harvest the tubers, we'll replace that with compost, which will benefit the soil. And if we don't harvest the tubers, they will break down, create a compost in the soil, and create a pathway for the water. So unfortunately, when you've got soil that's as bad as the soil we've got here, it takes a lot of work. Here's one of the teak that was damaged, and look at it, perfectly healthy. And right here, we've got this lemongrass. Right next to the lemongrass, we've got a sweet potato starting to grow. This is one of the slips that we dropped in the ground here to take over. And again, this is one of those Beauregards, which is the hard ones to find. We're just propagating as many as we can to fill this out. Now, we've also started to plant pumpkins. These pumpkins, we've had real good luck, or real good success, using pumpkins to crowd out the grasses. So we plant pumpkins at irregular intervals. They're all up and down this area. We continue to come through, dig out the grasses, and let the pumpkins take over. But that doesn't mean, like, here's the lemongrass. We want the lemongrass. And we've got sweet potatoes over here as well. Here's the sweet potato. We have a sweet potato as well. So we want these things to take over to give us ground cover that'll shade out these really tall grasses that are a problem. Because we're going to have to cut all this stuff down again. Now, it gives us all this organic matter, but it's a big nuisance. Water is too important to waste on evaporation. And right now, a majority of the water that falls on this land goes into the atmosphere in evaporation. We don't want that. It's a slow process, but one step at a time. Compost, strategic planting, cut and drop, all of these things are what we're going to use to make this soil healthy soil. We shouldn't have these kind of puddles here. We just shouldn't. This much rain should be able to be absorbed into the ground. You can see where we have good, healthy soil, we don't have puddles. Puddles are a sign of bad soil. We're working to save the soil here. Unfortunately, you don't grow soil overnight. It took 6 months to get that soil that we just showed over in the food forest to the position it is now, and in another 6 months, it'll be better than it is now. That's it for today. Just to look at the water, getting a few of the fruit trees in the ground, hoping to take advantage of the rains because it looks like we're going to get some more rain tonight. Anyway, had to beat the rains. Talk to you guys next time. God bless everyone.